Welcome to The Explainer. We're diving into a relationship that's often called an unbreakable bond, one that has really shaped the modern Middle East for over 75 years. And that's the alliance between the United States and Israel.
11 minutes. That's it. Seriously, that's how long it took for the U.S. to officially recognize the brand new state of Israel back in 1948. And in that moment, a partnership was born that it would go on to reshape the world.
So, how did we get here? How did this incredibly powerful alliance even begin? Well, to really get it, we've got to go back, way before that quick decision in 1948.
You see, the foundation for this friendship was actually laid decades earlier. It was built on a landscape that was just completely shaken by rising anti-Semitism, huge global power shifts, and, of course, the devastation of two world wars. Okay, so the story really kicks off in the late 1800s. The Zionist movement starts gaining steam in Europe, a direct response to widespread persecution of Jewish people. Then, in 1917, you get this major boost, Britain's Balfour Declaration, which officially supports the idea of a national home for the Jewish people. Fast forward, and after the absolute horrors of the Holocaust, the global call for a safe Jewish haven becomes impossible to ignore. And all of that momentum leads directly to the UN's game-changing vote in 1947 to partition Palestine and officially create a Jewish state.
So, the moment finally arrives. The State of Israel is declared, and boom, just 11 minutes later, President Truman makes his move. But here's what's so fascinating. This wasn't some easy call. It was incredibly controversial and sparked a massive debate right inside his own administration.
And Truman himself knew just how big of a deal this was. I mean, his own Secretary of State, the famous General George Marshall, was totally against it. He warned Truman that it could set the entire region on fire and destroy U.S. relationships with Arab nations. But Truman pushed ahead anyway. So what was the rush? Well, it really boiled down to three key things. First, at home, you had a very strong and influential Jewish American community lobbying hard for this. Second, on a moral level, there was just immense public sympathy for the Jewish people after the Holocaust. And third, you can't forget the big picture. The Cold War was heating up, and Washington desperately needed a reliable anti-Soviet ally in the strategically vital oil-rich Middle East.
But here's the thing. This alliance wasn't a sure thing from day one. Not at all. The early years were actually full of tension and a good bit of mistrust. It would take a massive, transformative war to really forge the bond that we recognize today.
Just look at 1956. President Eisenhower was absolutely furious when Israel, along with Britain and France, attacked Egypt over the Suez Canal without even telling the U.S. He literally threatened to cut off all aid. Then, a few years later, the U.S. discovers Israel's secret nuclear program, which, you can imagine, created even more tension. And then came 1967, the Six-Day War. This was the game changer. Everything shifted. Before the war, the U.S. kind of saw Israel as a complicated, sometimes difficult friend. But after Israel's shocking victory against several Soviet-backed Arab armies, Washington started seeing Israel in a whole new light, as a powerful and valuable strategic asset. So what does that even mean, a strategic asset? Well, think of it like this. It's a partner whose own strength and location directly help you achieve your foreign policy goals. Israel's incredible military performance sent a clear message to Washington. Here was a powerful, reliable force that could stand up to Soviet influence right in the heart of the Middle East. Now, this new way of seeing Israel as a strategic asset, this wasn't just some theory they talked about in Washington. No, it translated into real, concrete, and totally unprecedented levels of American support. The 1973 Yom Kippur War really cemented this new reality. The U.S. launched a gigantic airlift operation to resupply Israel, a move so controversial that it led to a punishing oil embargo from Arab nations. And it was from this point on that American support really crystallized into three main pillars: a ton of money, the best military hardware, and a diplomatic shield at the UN. So first, let's just talk about the money. Since World War II, the U.S. has provided over $158 billion in aid to Israel. That is more than any other country in history. And this isn't just ancient history, right? This support is massive today. The U.S. provides a staggering $3.8 billion in military aid every single year. Now, to put that in perspective, that American aid alone accounts for about 16% of Israel's entire defense budget. Okay, pillar number 2, that diplomatic shield.
Since 1972, the U.S. has used its powerful veto in the UN Security Council 49 times to block resolutions that were critical of Israel. It's essentially acted as Israel's diplomatic guardian on the world stage. So, what this all shows is how the U.S. role was evolving. It wasn't just about providing aid anymore. America became this active, essential mediator, using its influence to broker historic peace deals like the Camp David Accords between Israel and Egypt, a deal that permanently changed the political map of the Middle East. All right, so let's bring things into the modern era. In the last few decades, you could argue the alliance has grown stronger than ever, even as it's had to navigate some very public disagreements, and a Middle East that is constantly changing. And in just the last few years, we've seen some huge, decisive steps from the U.S. that really reinforce this alliance. The Trump administration, for example, moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, it recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and it brokered the landmark Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and several of its Arab neighbors. So when you look at the relationship today, it really stands on these four solid pillars: a powerful, bipartisan base of support in Washington, high levels of American public support, deep intelligence sharing and strategic goals, and, of course, massive economic ties with trade between the two hitting around $50 billion a year. And that public support piece, it is a really big deal. When you have around 64% of Americans consistently saying they support Israel, that creates a very solid political foundation for the alliance. And you can be sure that politicians from both parties pay very close attention to that. So, from a quick 11-minute recognition in 1948 to today's unbreakable strategic bond, this alliance has been constantly evolving. And now, as the Middle East enters yet another era of massive change, it leaves us with the crucial question: what does the future hold for this 75-year